Always have some technical glitch that I do. Hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Claudio. Welcome to another live episode of Creators Lounge. And so over here on my left, I'm watching the show as I listen. So let me turn myself down over here so I don't hear an echo. And hope you're all doing well. Everyone here at home is doing well, enjoying the summer. Here in Texas, it's a little bit warm. So wherever you're at, I hope you're having uh, nice weather, and I hope you're feeling good. So, if this is your first time watching the show, if you would share it with others. So, if you are on Twitter or on Facebook or anywhere else, please do retweet or share. I know I'm going to do that right here. Let me pull out my phone because we are streaming on YouTube and on Periscope, so we should see it on Twitter pretty close. So let me see here. Boom, there it is. And it just hit a retweet of my own show. You normally don't do stuff like that, retweet like my own stuff, but for now I will. So the show, what is it about? Creators Lounge is hanging out with friends and just talking about creativity, the process, the whole creative process, and just kind of have a little bit of chat. This is somewhat unscripted, I should say. It is pretty much unscripted, and just enjoy talking about stuff like this with other folks, with whether they're musicians, artists, filmmakers, photographers, educators, just all spectrum. So today I'm super pumped, super excited to I get to chat with a good friend, and normally I get to see him fairly often at different conferences. In fact, we were supposed to be seeing each other at South by Southwest EDU back in March, but there's this certain thing that popped up. And when I say Corona, I don't mean the drink, but it was some virus. So a lot of plans got changed. So, but I'm happy to actually get to see him virtually here. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring him on. My friend Michael Hernandez. How's it going, man?
Hey, I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We were on a little bit earlier, just kind of catching up, but I'm glad that we get to hang out a bit for a little bit of time here. And like I said, normally we're in person, but we're gonna do what we can with what we have.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
here I see Mr. Gabriel Carrillo at Tech Byte saying, "What's up, man?" So let me say a little shout out there. Ooh. But yeah, man. So how's everything going?
I'm great. I'm living my best like COVID quarantine life. We were just talking about like the advantages of being like an extroverted introvert,
I know.
and making it work and being productive and efficient and happy. And I don't know. I sometimes I feel guilty saying that. People are like, "Wait, what?" But making it work. I have my commute is really short. I have daylight. I can take more than 10 minutes to eat my lunch.
Oh,
So I'll start with that. That's like a good.
yes. Well,
a good
I've
that
also noticed that like on you have your quarantinis,
yes, the
right?
quarantinis. Yes,
Yeah,
post
I like
recipes
the
on Instagram every once in a while.
recipes. I haven't tried one yet. So I need to one of these
Okay.
days try it out. That's funny thing. So speaking of like a quarantini or something, like there's a place here that opened up in our town. And I think they're popping up in a lot of places. It's a margarita shop to go. So they sell
Isn't that
margaritas.
interesting?
Huh? What's that?
Isn't that interesting? Like all of a sudden now we can like get to go cocktails and
Yeah, it's like, well, before you couldn't do that, but now you can. Yeah, it's funny. So it's like, yeah, people are like posting, oh, there's a margarita shop. You can go take it to go. I'm like, take it to go. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, well, as long as it's in some sort of cup. And I'm like, okay.
in
So
some sort of cup. You just can't put it in your shoe.
some
I
sort of
guess you
cup.
can
Yeah.
have,
Take home a gallon. I was like, okay, we're gonna have a party tonight or something. But
yeah.
yeah, making the best of a bad of a tough situation. Yeah, we're talking about earlier. I'm like you. I love being here at home and being able to work from home. And like you said, the drive is extremely short. Just get up from the bed and come on over and eat some breakfast in between and stuff like that. But yeah, but I'm enjoying this, and like you were saying, you're enjoying it as well.
Yeah.
Um, so talking about not, well, first of all, Michael, I kind of cut you off, but where are you at? Just so people can get an idea where, what you're doing, and you're on summer break. So when you're not on break, what's your gig?
Yeah. So I'm a high school teacher in the Los Angeles area, and I teach journalism and film production and photography at a public high school. I've been doing that for 21 years, just finished my 21st year. And it's a great job. It's a lot of fun. It's always different and dynamic. And it's not tested. And so now that a lot of folks don't have standardized tests, they're finding out like how creative the possibilities that we can have. And so I've been really lucky to be in that kind of situation. And like you were saying, I also on the side do some consulting and working with other teachers and students around the country, do some speaking. We were scheduled to go to South by Southwest in your town, and bummed that didn't happen. We were really excited to speak about student activism, and that's a really cool subject right now. So that kind of stuff keeps me like really excited and creative and interested in what's going on, and keeps me on my toes. And I love learning from other people who are just like you, really creative and doing great stuff and inspiring. So I don't know, I just feel like I love my job and it makes me happy, and it brings me joy to work with my ridiculous high school students who are brilliant and amazing. And I don't know, I can just gush on and on about them.
Oh yeah.
We can talk more about some of the projects we've been doing on quarantine. Which is great too. But
that'd be. Well, I know I've seen some of the work your students have done when you share them on social, and I'm like, man, they're top notch. They do great work, and that's a testament to your work too. So kudos, man. Kudos. Thanks. Yeah, we were slated to have some time, and normally we run in Michael and I pretty much see each other during the summer several times. And we're part of several groups that the Adobe Ed Leader group, and I think this year we were supposed to be in DC, and obviously for obvious reasons we're not there, and Anaheim for ISTE was postponed, and so I know we would have had some time to hang out there. I was really looking forward to going for some like Mexican food, like California Mexican food. It's very different in Texas, and not to upset any of my Texas friends, but it's different. The Mexican food is very different, and I miss the California style Mexican. So I was going for ISTE, and I was like, I'm gonna go get some tacos while I'm there.
Yeah, it's really funny because when I was in Austin, you guys have breakfast tacos. Mm-hmm. And in California, we have breakfast burritos.
Burritos, yep.
And I'm not sure why there's a difference, other than you're in Texas and you have to be different.
I guess.
But I'm pretty sure a molten bowl of Velveeta with chili in it is not Mexican food.
No, yeah, that's one of those cultural shocks coming over here from growing up in California. And I was like, geez, okay, so I was like, okay, I don't have that in California. That's interesting. And and then the one of the big things was like tea. Okay, do you want some sweet tea? I was like, what's the difference? Tea is tea. No, sweet tea. I was like, what do you mean sweet? I was like, just try it. And I was like, it's like sweet, like very sugary sweet. That's what not like I mix it myself, but oh man, that's but that's just bummer that we're not able to kind of hang out. But man, this kind of helps make up for that for a little bit. We get to catch up, and we were in New Orleans last year for a conference as well, and that was, we got to hang out. And one of the you mentioned you teach photography, and that was such a cool thing to go hang out and walk about, just doing photo walks. So I don't know, maybe touch on that a little bit. Do you do any of that in your classroom, like photo walks and things like that?
Yeah, that's a really important thing. And I think that was the the ISTE Creative Constructor Lab that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. We're going to have the virtual one again this year as well. I can share that link a little bit later.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But yeah, I think experiential learning is really what it's all about. And because I think we need to really do a better job of connecting our curriculum to the real world, and sort of developing the mindset of curiosity that's been lost and sort of beat out of us because I can't be curious if someone's got this predetermined path of my learning. And it's important to have, I guess, benchmarks and goals and skills that you're going to learn and things like that. It's definitely important. But I mean, framing it in a way where the learner, or in this case, us, who are also learners, got to explore an area and kind of understand the history and the culture by being there. And it's sort of like a mini version. Like for a while, for several years, I took a group of students to foreign countries to make documentaries. So we went to Vietnam and Cambodia and Guatemala and Cuba, and did video documentaries. And you really don't understand the world until you experience it. You don't know people's concerns unless you meet them and share a meal with them and hang out with them and talk. And I think so much of our problems in our world, and especially in this country, are based on the fact that we don't understand other people and we don't want to understand other people. And so it's, this is all interrelated. How we teach has a direct bearing on the politics of this country. Like if you teach that there's one right answer and it's an easy answer and you're given that answer by whoever's in charge, then there you go. You're not going to have independent thinking or question like this person's like intent.
Yeah.
And so I think, this whole experiential learning really is the heart of all learning. Think about science class, you're supposed to do labs and you're supposed to go out and observe phenomena and take measurements and observations. And, it's really hard to do right now, obviously. But that's the ideal, I think. And then there's that sort of element of serendipity too. So, we were walking around New Orleans and we went through these historic cemeteries and saw really cool stuff happening there. And you would walk by a restaurant and go, what is that? And then we also went to, my former student has a bakery there. Yeah.
I arrived a little too late for that, but tell us about that.
So Bellegarde Bakery, he is Grayson Gill is the owner and founder of Bellegarde Bakery in New Orleans. And he's actually a finalist for the James Beard Award for Best Baker in the United States.
Wow.
And so that's pretty cool. So his mom actually still subs at my school and has subbed for me before. And so she's like, he's got this bakery. So I'm like, I'm going to New Orleans. Let's go check it out. So we all went down there and he gave us the tour behind the scenes and how they mill the heirloom grain themselves on these granite stones in the bakery. So it's like this really interesting connection to the land, and this, instead of sort of industrialized food supply, is very much about
very organic,
the artistry and the farmer and the land and how different kinds of things nurture us. And so, talk about experiential. So he's a student that I had as a film student in high school, right? He's not a filmmaker, but what he is, he's an entrepreneur. He's into marketing. It's biology and chemistry because you're baking and you have to connect, to these farmers and understand how the crops are being developed and the heirloom varieties and how the gluten and the protein and all of this other stuff is interconnected. And so what's really cool about that, I'm kind of getting on a tangent, but like the interdisciplinary nature of the world and how maybe we should be teaching that way, that all these systems are interrelated, and how all of our people and countries are interrelated. We can't
well,
I think ourselves off.
I think one of the as you were talking, he was able to do all that based on probably the way you taught and just being able to explore and be creative. Like you said, a lot of times we're putting on a line. You got to go through this conveyor belt. That's how teaching is, and you don't get to explore. You don't get to be a little innovative because it's like there's the one answer, there's the one way to do things, and a lot, unfortunately for a lot of students, we're and I would say current students and students who have been in school that are out there, they're like have a hard time right now trying to figure out how to do things because it was just an answer. It was not exploring. So a lot of, like we were talking about, these programs that we go to and attend, like the Constructors Lab, that's just really taking that and letting teachers experience it, and hopefully they take it back to the classroom and experience. Here, let's once you create, where to make a video, a documentary, but really letting them be creative in the way they go about putting that story together. Maybe you give them like the basics, but then it's like, okay, it's in your hands now. You have the option to be creative. And I'm here to kind of just help out, and that's kind of like the ultimate would be. It's like you're basically being the consultant in the classroom, like, and then they're coming with you with ideas like, yeah, so maybe do it this, maybe suggest this, suggest that, but they're really leading their own learning. That's kind of like, that would be ideal. That would be cool. A school just like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like a lot of foundational skills and mindsets that you have to establish to be able to do those projects. So kind of getting around to your initial question about the photo walks with my students. And so for my photography class, and also sometimes in my film classes as well, is like, I think of teaching as like a set of challenges. So once they have sort of the foundational skills and we practice those and hone those skills, they're ready to go. And photography is like super easy. It's like the easiest thing. I say easy technically, but it's really difficult, like mentally and emotionally. Yeah, and ethically too. I think we don't want to miss that and overlook the ethics behind what we do as well. But to like give them a challenge and go, okay, here's your theme, your prompt, and here are the requirements and the things that you have to do or include, and the number of photos and where you're going to share it and all that stuff. Now go. And then you can see the wheels turning, right? And they're like, wait, what? And they're like, can you show us an example of like something that someone's done before? I'm like, no, you're the first ones to do it. Yeah. And so you give them enough to hold on to springboard from. But the cool thing about it is everybody turns in something completely different.
Yeah.
And if you set it up right, it can be really a lot of fun to see not just the end result, but how different and unique all those the results are. And I think that's something that's important to learn too. But as an educator, like how different people interpret the exact same instructions, how unique and individualized our students really are, how if we give them space and permission to follow their passion, they'll like run with it and do a really good job, as opposed to locking stuff down, like walling it in, not letting them post publicly. Like there's only one or two answers that you could possibly have that are right. I mean, I guess in math class, there's like, one way to solve an equation, or like an end result of the equation. I think there's multiple ways to solve equations, but that's not what I mean. What I mean is like, instead of teaching the calculation in math, you can teach like computational thinking.
Yeah.
I read an article about that recently. It's like, we have calculators who can do that a lot better and faster. In fact, you can use your calculator on SATs. So why are we teaching that? Instead, should we be thinking about how we're using these skills and how are we doing these techniques, and what are we doing with them to make the world better, as opposed to like, I'm just going to make sure you know how to do these formulas. And I guess I'm not a math expert, so I don't mean to speak, or I don't know anything about it, but like there was a great article.
Yeah.
Just this mindset of like, what are we going to do with these skills? It's not just the skill in itself. It's like, now what? Because we send kids off into the real world, at lunchtime, in the afternoon after school, and in the summertime, and what are they doing with all this knowledge?
Yeah.
And that's also kind of the thing that we're finding out now about remote school too, which is really challenging and an existential crisis for a lot of teachers. Is like, we've been the Google, and so we expect everybody to come to us and Google us.
Yeah.
So tell us the answer, teacher. And now we're not there.
Yeah.
And Google is a lot faster than us, and the world changes. We can't know everything. And so we almost feel outsourced, because the kids are looking to YouTube and these other places to find the information. So it's not an easy pivot, but it's a manageable pivot for us to go, hey, I'm not going to be the human Google for you. I'm going to show you how to, effectively do your own Google search. And instead, those of us that are here in person in these teams, we're going to talk together and work through these issues and do something with this information and talk about how we might make something great and interact with other people. And I think that's a great opportunity that I'm really excited about for the quarantine. Is like, now we're kind of forced to have to do that or try it.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are being productive and successful with it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing. A lot of people that I'll follow on like social that are taking advantage of and this not even educators but just entrepreneurs taking advantage of. It's like I don't know if you've tried to buy something online like a microphone or a camera or some sort of stuff is like selling out because people have figured out this is an opportunity. They've taken this as an opportunity to like, well, I've always wanted to do this. Now, there's people that are sharing how to cook, how to build something, just how to do different things. But now they're jumping on it and creating videos and have taken this as an opportunity. Whereas before it's like, well, I'm not, I would have been okay just doing what I was doing, but now my audience has changed. I have to reach the audience a different way, and going into the classroom, going back to where you were saying is uh, the journey to getting to that end. This is what we're more concerned. I think we know tests always worry more about this here than all this that's happening, all the learning that's going on, and I think kind of the refocus on here's what's important right here, this whole process, this whole learning that's going on, iterations, you're going back, you're revising, you're redeveloping, you're prototyping, you're doing all this, and that's a ton of valuable learning that's happening. And I think hopefully I'm saying hopefully I think we're seeing a lot of that happening now. A lot of people are realizing that's important, that whole middle part. That whole middle part's important.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Going to the, when we were out there doing our photo walks, that was, yeah, we had our phones and I had a camera too, but we were talking a lot about as we were taking the pictures. We were discussing angles, we were discussing colors, in approaches, which all that kind of stuff is and obviously nerding out on photography stuff, but all that kind of talk that happens that could happen in classrooms, could happen, and I think could happen virtually as well, remotely, because you can have conversations and say, all right, we're going to take a break and go out and as safely as you can, or go do some, capture some footage or capture a photo. It can be done. So I think I would say that it's kind of like a silver lining in all this, a blessing in all this is that it's pushed us to be more creative in how we can reach our students, engage with them virtually. If you're a Bueller type teacher, this may be tough.
Yeah.
Because if you were just standing in the front and being Bueller,
right,
the whole remote thing it's challenging. And, it's almost it forced you. I know for me it did in my role in help working with educators. It forced me to like, although I kind of enjoy it, but at the same time, I was like, oh, maybe we could try this, maybe we can try that, we can do this. But
yeah,
I think we're both kind of on the same wavelength. This, we're enjoying it, we're taking advantage of it, and it's nice to be able to get up and stretch, and I'm gonna go get a snack.
Yeah.
And eat the snack.
Yeah, it's interesting, like you're saying, like we were on this photo walk supposedly playing and having fun, but we were definitely learning at the same time. And so I think it really just goes to show you that you don't have to learn in a classroom. In fact, a classroom is probably the worst place to learn because it's like boring and sterile and you have to sit down for a long time. And that's not where curiosity happens. It's not where serendipity happens. It's not where collaboration happens. It's sort of that spark. And I don't know, I think what was great about that, if I was by myself, I wouldn't have had nearly as an interesting experience compared to when I was with you guys, because you talk and you come up with different ideas and you bounce ideas around, and it sort of amplifies and elevates the conversation. And I think so that collaboration piece is really great too. But just the fact that you don't have to be in a classroom to learn, I think we all need to get over that. And so we want to see this rush back to let's go back to school. Let's reopen schools. Look, school hasn't ended. It's just we're not going back to the classroom. And the real good learning probably happens outside of that. And there's a lot of logistical reasons, I guess, that might make it easier for teachers or administrators. But that doesn't mean it's the best way to learn. And so I think we need to really keep that in mind too. It's like, what are we doing? Are we doing this because it's easy for us or what we know? I'm talking to teachers as well as parents, and I'm trying to like, be mindful of childcare issues and people have to work and all that stuff too. And I'm specifically talking about high school and middle school here, which is a little bit different than elementary school. It's a bigger challenge, but if we're looking about that and even colleges, the system was so inefficient before, and we wonder why we had so many like discipline issues and classroom management issues. Like, where are they now? Have we forgotten like those things? Like, you don't mention anymore.
Yeah.
Right. How many school shootings have there been? Like none.
Yeah.
Right. So let's look at all the positives here and think about, I don't know, I'm kind of on a rant about remote school, but I think it really, like you're saying, it unlocks its potential of like, necessity is the mother of all invention, right? Like if I have to figure something out, like now we've all become hunter-gatherers, right?
Yeah.
Who's got like the sourdough starter so I can have bread because they're out of whatever, or who's got extra toilet paper, or where can I find, or teachers are like, I've got to do this video thing. So now I've got to learn how to use Zoom and make a background, and, I've got to record my lectures and, make some challenges the kids can do on their own. And it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, yeah, it's a lift and it's uncomfortable. Nobody likes change. It's always hard. But in the end, there's probably a lot of good stuff to come out of it. And like, I was interviewing a bunch of students for my podcasts, and I haven't published them yet, but some really cool things happened is I found actually two different students. One student was mine and one was a student in San Jose. Mm-hmm. And they started a business while on quarantine because they had time. So they were still managing to get all their coursework done, but their day wasn't sucked up doing all this useless bureaucratic back and forth sitting in a chair. Instead, they could move at their own speed to learn and finish their work at their own rate. They weren't on the clock. And then in the meantime, they like follow their passions. Somebody started a nonprofit, and they're both nonprofits, a tutoring service and something else. But like, imagine what the kids could do with that extra time. It's not just wasted on video games. And I think, again, that kind of comes back to this mindset of like how we think of our students and how we treat them. And of course, they're going to act the way that we treat them. So, it's just like, it's no different than us. Like, you go to a faculty meeting and, or a professional development thing in your district, and what are you doing? You're on your phone.
Yeah.
Why is that?
You're waiting for it to end.
Because it's boring. You're not learning anything.
Yeah.
And so, when we did the ISTE Creative Constructor Lab, we got to do that cool photo walk. Yeah. And something that we cared about, we were interested in, and along the way, we learned all these great things. So
that, one of the going back to that photo walk we did, and so we had a group. I think you were talking about. I forget like everyone's topic. I did like some 5 tips for photography, and I think there's some video tips, and so it was about 4 of us, and then it was like 150 teachers or something, just going all around Jackson Square and downtown or the old area of New Orleans, and just going around taking pictures. And the ones that people shared were pretty amazing. It's like the concepts of like do a low shot, a wide angle, try to capture like colors and in that little bit, it was like a 5-minute share that I did, and then people were like, oh, that's pretty neat that they were able to grab. And then even now I still get messages from people say, hey, we're still doing my students were doing some of the stuff I learned at that conference. And I was like, oh, that's pretty neat, to be able to see kind of like the synergy, share it with someone and just kind of grows, and being able to inspire someone, which is really neat. And so you mentioned your podcast, so I want to kind of touch that a little bit, maybe chat some about the podcast. So one of my ideas when I was doing this live show is grab it and taking the audio and just kind of putting together like, hey, I might as well, I wanted to start a podcast and then just put it together as a podcast, maybe with some edit here and there. But how has the podcast been for you as far as like putting it together? So if anyone's listening, like maybe some tips on putting a podcast together, what are some best like approaches. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously gear, but what are something you would, because your podcast is pretty awesome.
Oh, thanks.
So,
Yeah, so I have a podcast called Change the Narrative, and it actually evolved out of the Creative Constructor Lab.
okay.
And I shared the link there. I don't know, it's going to be in the chat box there. And so the first Creative Constructor Lab, it came out of that. I gave a talk, and I'm like, this is a great book idea. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm working on this book idea. I need to like build an audience so they're ready for it and get some ideas. And so I started a newsletter, and someone's like, hey, my friend Saba Quidwai, she's like, hey, you should really make this into a podcast. I'm like, okay. And then I talked to a couple other friends, and they gave me ideas about like how to make this story. So basically it's a podcast. It's sort of like, think of Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown,
Okay.
but for innovation in education in the workplace.
That's
so I include like little audio recordings in different places in my travels, and make a commentary based on that, and interview a guest around a theme, around some issue of creativity and innovation. So season 1 was, I think, pretty great. I got to interview some really great educators and innovators, professor at Cornell, some other stuff. And then season 2 started after quarantine, and I really wanted to capture the silver linings of remote school, because I figured everybody was struggling, and I think we lost perspective of like I was just talking about. There's a lot of good things, a lot of advantages, and it makes us really rethink what we teach and how we teach it, and are we doing the best things? And so there's a bunch already live right now with teachers, and I have several with students ranging from middle school to high school that will be making their rounds soon. I got to get those out before school starts, but it's really fantastic. So as far as like putting stuff together, I actually wrote a book about podcasting for the classroom.
I'll share
I'll share that link there too. And at the Adobe, sorry, I keep saying Adobe, the ISTE Creative Constructor Lab this fall.
Adobe sponsored it. I think that's probably.
Yeah, we're doing a session on podcasting as well. So yeah, I think it's a really great tool for, I know everybody's doing it now. It's sort of like that Portlandia episode where everyone's a DJ. You know, but I think if it's done right and done well, and you do something that you care about, like you want to do, to talk about and explore, it can be really useful to other people. And so that's kind of how I'm doing it is, and I think everything that's creative should also be something that you care about and want to do, not just what you think you have to do or should do.
Yeah.
Because the passion and the creativity won't be there unless it is. And so for me, it's exploring innovation, and it's exploring these ideas around remote work and remote school. And I don't know, I just love storytelling, and I love talking to people, and it takes a lot more time than I thought. But you could do a really simple podcasting projects for yourself or with your students even, and have them do it. So in fact, I have my journalism students have podcasts, and because they can't go out and shoot video interviews these days, so they do audio ones. And then even my photography students. So we did a project where it was called the Tribes of Miracosta. So the high school name is Miracosta. And so I had them go out and interview groups of people from different parts of the school that they didn't know or interact with. You know, everyone's in cliques in high school.
Yeah.
To try to get them out of their shell and to meet other people. And so the first thing to do was interview them on audio, and then process, you know, what they said, and then write some questions, and then take their portrait. And so the idea was that it was a portrait project, but it was this getting to know people first. And so the audio portion was part of that. And so they embedded that along with their photos into an ebook. So we compiled those and made an ebook for the class. So audio is pretty great. It conveys emotion. It's intimate, so you don't have to like have your screen open and people can see what you're looking at. You can listen to podcasts while nobody's commuting now, but while you're like working out, or you're cleaning the house, or whatever, and it's on demand. You can turn it on, turn it off, start, stop whenever you want. And it's really easy and cheap to do. So you can do, if you've got an iPhone, you're good to go. You can do it.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah,
that's neat. Yeah, I know when you launched it, I was like, I've been like, man, I've been wanting to do a podcast for a long time. Then I thought, well, I'll just do I have the audio from this. I think I'm gonna kill two birds with one stone, and just like as I get all these live shows done, I was like, yeah, I'm taking so a little bit of a different process, but I like the whole I like the idea that you had your students create a podcast too. I think that's especially one of the things I always share with the others is the best the person who can best tell your story is you. So I mean, if a student's they're putting it together, they're telling their story, they're interviewing, and you said the key word was passion, things that they're passionate about, and it doesn't become a chore. It becomes more of like, this is fun. I enjoy doing this, and it's not like, oh man, I got to record another video.
Right.
Because when I do my videos for YouTube, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. Cause like, if I can get paid doing that full time, that'd be great. I would do that.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
do that in a heartbeat, but it's not there yet, but you never know. But that would be a ton of fun to just do that full time. And
Yeah.
I like that your students were entrepreneurs, and it's probably not just, there's probably a ton of students that took this time as well. It's like, I'm trying to think, when I was a teenager, I was like, I don't know if I would have been as entrepreneurial then as I am now, but sometimes I kick myself like, I wish I would have been. But I'm sure there's students out there that are like, man, I got a lot of time. I've already done my work. I'm just going to start my own little company. I'm going to create a video game or do something. And
I mean, it depends on the kid. Like, I don't know that I would be. I feel like I'm like a little like OCD right now. Like, but as a high schooler, I would probably, I did stuff. But everyone's going to approach it differently. And I think that's the point, is like, downtime is supposed to be downtime. Like, the kids, the biggest thing that they all said in these interviews was that they were getting enough sleep. They didn't get enough sleep because they're in sports until like 10 o'clock at night, and then they have to do homework until 1 a.m. And then they're at school like at 7 to take a 0 period class. It's ridiculous. So the demands we're making on ourselves, at work, as well as our students, I think was a little unhealthy. And we saw that, with, again, the bullying and the school shooting and the stress. And, I work at a, high performing, well-resourced school. So our issues are maybe slightly different than at some other schools, but it's unhealthy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that I really go back to, is like remote learning and the way we've been doing it, at least the way we've been doing it, I think, or some of the teachers at my school have been doing it on block schedule, has been a much more humane scale and pace. And so I think we need to keep that in mind. But going back to the creativity thing, like giving us that time to do things, like I love to cook, and I hadn't really seriously cooked in a long time, just because I'm running around.
Yeah.
Right. And going to conferences or grading or like planning the next thing. And so now I'm cooking again. I learned to bake sourdough bread. I made my own sourdough starter, a cliche, right?
I think I remember you. Yeah.
It's so good. And you have home cooked meals with your family. Like, think about that. If you have teenagers, like, when was the last time you did that? Because you're running the sports practices and piano lessons and performances and whatever. And it's like, you can't even like sit down with your family and have a meal. Like, what's wrong with this picture? So, but we were talking earlier about graphic novels. Like, I decided to take a class. Like,
I remember you.
Yeah, there was a place nearby offering graphic novel class. And when I was in middle school and elementary school, I always liked to draw. I grew up before the internet, so there was nothing to distract myself with.
Entertainer.
So I'm like, okay, like I collected comic books. I was a classic nerd, right? So I took this class, and it's like a nice little challenge, because I don't really consider myself like an illustrator artist. There's a lot more creative and talented people than myself, but I want to give myself the challenge, and I'm always interested in different ways of telling stories. And so I did a little mini graphic novel. So I posted it on Instagram. It's like 6 panels. But I'm starting to geek out on it, and I got some really interesting graphic novels that are not superhero kinds of things, but they're really crazy illustrations that really go deep and allude to other works of art. And it's like, somebody mentioned this as like a form of braided time. So the way the panels are displayed, you can kind of interweave narrative and time and structure, which I'm really fascinated with.
That's cool.
And so it really got me thinking about other things, like filmmaking, which is what I teach, or even photography, or in my own writing and my own stuff. And so I think one of the things that, we talk about this actually in the first season of my podcast, is where do you find inspiration and how do you become creative? And it's oftentimes outside of your area of expertise. It's with side projects. So Stephen Valentine was one of the guys that I interviewed, and he's like, side projects is the thing. It's like, it's not a waste of time. It's not a silly hobby. It's important for you to come up with new ideas, and to reframe the world differently, and to get inspiration in other places. So, and I think now that we have time to do that, we're much more creative, I think, and effective as educators and creatives. So I think that's really important. So the graphic novel is really great. I'm hoping to do another one if I can squeeze some time out of the summer.
I would. Yeah, I need to go back through it. I think I remember seeing it run through my feed, and I had to go back through and see it. But yeah, it'd be pretty neat to see your next graphic, I guess, panels, or you say.
Yeah, I don't know if it's called a graphic novel if it's like shorter than 100 pages, but
a short graphic novel. You just create a little genre on the side of graphic novels. Short story novels or short story graphic novels. Yeah, I've got several graphic novels, more on the Batman ones, but it's really neat to read. The graphic novels, obviously very different. I would say they may be a little some, like, I would not give my, like, if I had a fifth grader, maybe not have them read it just because some of the language in there, but I don't know, it just depends. But they're graphic novels, they're graphic, like, there's a lot of blood and stuff, especially dealing with superheroes and stuff. But it's really neat, the whole process. For me, a lot of times I'll get it and just look at the pictures and just look at the artwork because I'm fascinated by it. The same with, sometimes I'll look at it, I'll watch a movie just based on who's the producer, the director, who's the camera, the person running the photography, because I know that they have a certain style, and it's just the cinematography of it. And sometimes I'll just sit there and just kind of like, I'm not even paying attention to the story because I'm just like blown away by, man, that was an amazing camera angle there.
Yeah.
Wow, look at that shot. How did they do that? Wow, that's insane, that shot, and the colors and the things that I'll start paying attention, and like, did you see what happened there? Like, oh no, I wasn't paying attention. I was just kind of looking at it as the art, and not so much I wasn't listening to the story. Sometimes the same thing when I listen to music. I won't hear the lyrics because I'm focused on the pieces, the instruments, the different layers of instruments. And then, now I'm listening to some songs like, oh, I didn't even know it was about that. I just got so focused on the melody and rhythms.
The drumming, right? Because you're the drummer.
Yeah, the drumming too. But yeah, that's and that's, again, just because I'm fascinated by that stuff, and I'll just latch on to that. And I know you're like, whenever someone says, like, who's the film person, like, that, it's like, I know, it's like, I always think of Michael because he's like to me, the film buff in my circle, in the circle of friends that I have. What's something that you're kind of maybe, I would say, I don't know, watching, I don't know if you're watching something or something that kind of interests it, as far as like cinematography, that you're enjoying. I know people are taking time some people are, the Netflix subscriptions maybe have increased during this time, and the other types of subscriptions, but there's a few stuff in there that's, like, some stuff is just like, but something like, that's interesting. Anything that piqued your interest?
Well, it's interesting. So I've been catching my daughter up on some of the classics and some of the movies that I've liked over the past, I don't know, several decades, and show actually in my film class, because she's not in my film class. But so Kieślowski, who's a Polish director. I like obscure Eastern European movies. I'm not so much a Hollywood fan. Cool. But talk about like interesting story that you're watching more for the cinematography than the story itself. And so a movie, Double Life of Veronique, is really great. trying to make sense of it is a little difficult, but it's
Okay.
definitely about mood and lighting, and that's been really great. And there's a really interesting movie that he made in the late 80s. It was a 10-part miniseries for Polish television because he's Polish. It's called the Decalogue. And each of the 1-hour episodes is based on one of the 10 commandments. And it's not like a religious Christian kind of thing. It's basically taking that concept and reinterpreting it in an ethical dilemma that these characters face. And they all happen to live in this big apartment building. And so they cross paths every once in a while in just some of the episodes. But I thought what's really cool about that is, A, the storytelling is just incredible and amazing, but just this idea of like reinterpreting like something that you thought was not reinterpretable. Like, and I think that's a really cool thing too, to think about examples that you show your students. And even if you're probably not going to show like a 7th grader the Decalogue, you're probably even going to show like a senior Decalogue, unless it's like an IB film class or something. But just the idea that you can say, hey, look, somebody did this, you know, and this is how it turned out. So for example, the a short Thou Shalt Not Kill is a movie about the death penalty.
Okay.
And all the issues around the death penalty, right? And so it's like, that's brilliant, right? And so when we look to these really great or unusual works of art, it's not always to like sit through the 3-hour Russian epic. It's to also go, oh, I can think about the world differently. It's kind of like, I don't have the patience, people are going to hate me for this, but I don't have the patience to get through novels. I just, I read a lot, but it's a lot of nonfiction and a lot of periodicals and stuff. I'll read long articles in the Atlantic and things like that, but it's really difficult for me to make it through a novel. Maybe
I'm with you on the novels.
But what I love the concept, and I love language, and I love, you know, all the things that make up knowledge. And I give props to anybody who can write and read long novels that are good. But just like I would read through book reviews, because it would be like not only like a summary, like a Spark Notes kind of thing, but also sort of like an interpretation and a spin on it. So I don't know, I find that inspiring too. So I think, I don't know, like there's different ways to be inspired. There's different ways to digest works of art and bring them into your life somehow. It doesn't have to be like painful.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it should be sometimes, like you gotta like sweat it out, blood, sweat, tears to like really learn something. But I don't mean to make it easy. I just mean to make it like approachable.
Well, I think sometimes you have to kind of expand. I would say expand your horizons, you know.
Yeah. And you know, we were talking earlier about this challenge that I have on Instagram right now. And it sort of comes from one of the movies that I love and I show my students, and I just showed it to my daughter. It's called The Five Obstructions. And if anyone's a fan of Lars von Trier, the Danish filmmaker, who's done a lot of really odd movies, he has a documentary called The Five Obstructions, where he takes his friend who made his favorite movie, which is a short film, like obscure short film from the 60s, and has him remake the movie with a bunch of obstacles and challenges. And I encourage you to find that documentary. It's called The Five Obstructions. It's a wonderful story, and it's fun to watch, and it's really creative. And it really makes me think about the creative process too, of really the only way that you can truly be creative is if you're confronted with a challenge and an obstacle, because otherwise you'll just do it the same old easy way you've always done it. And the same thing goes for life, right?
Yeah.
And so what I started doing is on Instagram, posting weekly challenges. So making short films with a set of obstructions. So you have to make a short film that's 60 seconds or less with different obstructions. So so this week, Inside Out is the theme, and you have to compose your own score. No shot can last longer than half a second.
It is challenging. It is. I know when you posted the first one, I was like, okay. And that's when I was on the trip, the family down down south. And I was thinking, and then I got sidetracked in something else, but I gotta get on those, and I will. Those challenges are so cool. But again, it's where it's making you think. It's like, okay, I got 60 seconds. How am I going to do this in 60 seconds? I got to do this part here, this part here. but yeah, and then I think the first one was when I looked at it, I think I recall was no dialogue. I think it was black and white,
Mm-hmm.
and then and so I was like, okay, I think that one for me, that one was like, okay, I think I can get this one, even though I haven't done it, but I was already thinking. And then some of the other ones were like, oh, this one's a little more. So I got to do a score. So that's a little more. And now I'm thinking a little further on that. Okay, what can I do for
Yeah.
that? But yeah, I think that's a great and challenges. I think I saw someone ask you about those. If you're gonna share those all out, and then being able to maybe have students do those activities as well, which I think
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's I don't know about other class, other subject matter. Maybe it's the same thing. I think you think about like STEM and science, but also I think you could do it in English and social studies as well. But I don't know. I just feel like going back to our conversation earlier about the role of the teacher. I think it should be an instigator. I think we should be like the chief instigator.
Yeah.
And like, I dare you to do this. Or like, I don't know if you can do this. Try it. Let's see what happens. Like, can you write poetry for a graphic novel in your English class?
Yeah.
Collaborate with the illustrators in the art department.
In the art department.
Can you make a documentary in your social studies class to really explore Black Lives Matter, because it's current events, and it's more important probably than a lot of the stuff that you're studying. It doesn't seem to touch on kids' lives. Yeah. And so instigator in chief, I kind of love that role. And again, like, give them tools for success, make it a safe space so they feel confident enough and trust you to help them and support them. But at the same time, go like, I want you to try this thing. And my photography kids have been really good sports about it. Like, I'm giving them this stuff and they're like, what? And then like, okay, let's go. And it's kind of fun to see how it turns out.
Well, yeah, and like I said, you shared some of their work, and I was like, it's amazing work. And like you said, that the challenges sometimes forces us to kind of really get down dirty, messy, and get a little bit innovative, and some great work comes about from all that. But hey, I can't. We've been going on for almost an hour, man. I can't believe that. I was like, just looked up there. It's crazy. Really enjoying the chat, just enjoying the conversation. But hey, if there's something that you would suggest to someone, let's say right now, being at home, and maybe not quarantine level, I don't know, maybe something that, what would you say, like, for them to kind of explore something, a challenge or a tip for them to let's say get out of their comfort zone or something? I don't know. What would be something that you would, whether it's an educator or just anyone, something for them to just get a little bit more creative or try something. And I don't know if creative is the right word, but and it may be the challenge. Check out your challenge. I think that's a pretty cool one. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I think everybody's creative in their own way. Some people are gardeners, some people are quilters. I have a friend in Canada who's like an amazing, like, avant-garde quilter. I'm like, what? But I think so. Don't think that creativity has to be like a painting or a photograph. Some people just don't like that. It's not their thing, and they might be stronger and more confident in other areas. But I would say, I think one of the things that I found for myself was like this thing that's been kind of nagging me in the back of my head of like, one of these days I want to try that, or maybe one of these times I can do this or that, like I did with the graphic novel or the sourdough bread. It's like baking is also an act of creativity and meant to be shared with others. And so I've handed off lots of loaves of bread to friends. And I think maybe that's something too, is make something for someone else.
I like that.
Like, put your heart in it. Like, it's from you, and it's of you, but you're giving it to somebody else. So that could be kind of a fun, whatever that happens to be. Maybe it's like you're going to grow something in the garden. Maybe you're going to bake some food, or I don't know. Yeah, I just think take that mindset of that. Maybe that thing you've maybe always wanted to try. It's not too much of a lift, and you don't have to be too embarrassed if it doesn't turn out right. You can just do it, try it. And I think that's a good place to start.
I like that. I think that's a great tip there. You're going to do something, but then it's going to be for someone else. I like that. 'Cause even sometimes doing that, you're like, I'm going to give it to someone. I'm going to do my best to whatever it is to do my best, to give it my best, to give it 100%, so that
Yeah.
when I share it.
And I think, that's the thing that we're all struggling with right now is connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know my students were definitely struggling with connection. And, we're struggling to have that interpersonal connection. Although I would argue that the Zoom calls and FaceTime calls have been made me more connected to people that I just didn't make time for before,
Yeah.
or said I was too busy. But I think when you do those kinds of things, it rekindles that interpersonal connection as well. And in the end, you always make art for somebody else. It's coming out of you. You're expressing your passion and you're processing your issues. But it's meant to be seen or experienced by somebody else. You don't just throw it in a closet. And that's the other thing I would say too about creativity is it's a great way to process all these challenges and stresses that we have right now. I know my students were really craving the creativity. They were really craving it because it gives us some sort of semblance of control over our lives when so much is out of control and unpredictable. And so you can predict, if I make something with my hands, it's going to turn out, some way. And so I think that's kind of a cool thing to remember that as well.
I like that. That's a great tip there, Michael. Hey, Michael, if someone wants to, I've shared some of your podcast here, but if they want to connect with you, what's the best place? Where's the best place to get connected?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on Twitter at Cinehead, as in like cinema head, and Instagram at changing.the.narrative, and also on my website. So that's michael-hernandez.net. And I'm all over the place, or you can just do a Google search for me and I'll show up. I'm always posting stuff on Twitter, so I'm very active there. Instagram, I have a lot of stuff, including the film challenge is on Instagram. I also have inspirational quotes and some other resources on Instagram. I also have a monthly newsletter, which is really great. You can find that link on my Instagram.
What was your website again?
My website is michael-hernandez.net.
Okay. Michael. Okay, you're sharing it there.
And you can sign up for the monthly email newsletter there. And I share resources and ideas related to digital literacy, education, and innovation. So if that's your bag or you just want to check it out, please sign up and check it out. I post once a month.
So they can connect with you too. Your social stuff is on there too?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So if they missed it, they can check out michael-hernandez.net. That's cool. I don't think we connect social so much. I don't ever think I've seen your site, so I gotta.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got a website, right?
Yeah. So, but if you've taken this time right now during this quarantine, you can get a website, people.
Right.
Yeah. It's one of those things you thought, man, if I would have just started right at the start, I probably would know how to play piano now, or a little bit more,
Yeah.
But it's one of the things. Just it's never too late, It's never too late to try something. But hey, man, thanks so much for taking time and hopping on here and just catching up and chatting, just about so many things. And for those that were watching live, I hope that you've gained something from our discussion. And if you're watching on replay, appreciate it watching it. And there's ways to go out there and be challenged and give it your all. And I like Michael's tip is think of making it for someone else and putting your heart into it. But it's been good, man. It's been great. And thank you all for stopping by, and we'll see you all next time.
Thanks, Claudia.
Take care.